first of all, thank you all so much for being here today. This is awesome, and I love how curious everyone is. We're just having this conversation up front here about curiosity and the power of curiosity. And part of the reason why I named my company what I did, which is strategic curiosity. So we want to put that curiosity to work. Today, we're going to be talking about unlocking the superpowers of a neurodiverse team. So we're going to start session goals, boring, but essentially we're going to explore what neurodiversity is. Has anyone heard the term neurodiversity before? If you heard it, let's see hands. Okay, awesome. So that's good. Not everyone. That's cool too. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about neurodivergent variations and also strengths of neurodivergencies. So how do we actually embrace those strengths, and how can we all reflect on our own leadership style and team dynamics to actually unlock untapped potential? So those are the sheets that you grabbed when you came in. You can put those aside for right now. We're not going to use them for a little while. They're going to have nothing, well, not nothing, but mostly nothing to do with what we're going to do at the moment. And do we have those sheets out for our online participants as well? I think, do we have an electronic copy for everyone to get? Just a quick nod, or maybe they have access. If not, we'll make sure you get the access. Excellent. All right, well, thanks very much. And what I want to start with is show of hands. How many people are left-handed? Oh, we got one down here in the front. Awesome. Anyone else left-handed? Okay. In the Middle Ages, left-handedness was associated with the devil, being unlucky, and is even associated with the Latin word for sinister. That's not so great. But it's also clearly not true. I hope you're not regretting raising your hand at this point. And thank you for being honest about that. But let's start with lefties. You didn't know you were going to walk into a session and we're going to talk about left-handedness now, did you? But we are. Did you know that left-handed people only made up about 2 to 3% of the population at the turn of the century in the 1900s? Today, it's more than 10% of the population. So I'm actually surprised we didn't have at least one more in this room. But it's about 10% of the whole population. So what happened? Did everyone just all of a sudden think it's cool to be a lefty and we're okay with it now? No. Society became more accepting of left-handedness. Left-handed scissors and desks came about so that people who are left-handed can do their best work. We understand that left-handedness is a human trait, a difference, not something sinister or evil. So what does this have to do with what we're talking about today? I don't know if anyone has seen this, where online sometimes people ask, why are there so many ADHD diagnoses or attention deficit hyperactivity disorder? Well, for the same reason that there are suddenly more stars after we built telescopes. When we know better, when we can understand these things better and put language towards it, we see more diagnoses. That's not me yet. Now, while I'm in a doctorate program, I'm in my last year, and so this is not me yet. So let's talk about that world of neurodiversity. Neuro meaning the brain, and diversity meaning differences in lots of the population. Within neurodiversity, there's neurodivergent and neurotypical. If you identify with having a condition like ADHD, autism, dyslexia, dysgraphia, Tourette's, and more, that is considered part of the nearly 20% of the world's population who has a neurodivergence. Neurotypical would be your other 80%. But let's all just think about that for half a second. Is anyone really typical? But neurotypical is the world as it's been built today with the systems and processes. So like I said, 20%, upwards of 20% of the world's population is neurodivergent. So think about that in terms of your teams that you work on. Who here works on a team of 5 or more people? If you work on a team of 5 or more people, or you can think of 5 or more people in your company, 5 or more friends, etc., the chances are at least one of them has a differently wired brain. So neurodivergence comes with both challenges. Yes, it is a neurological diagnosis, as well as strengths. And the research in more recent days is about the strengths and how we can utilize those strengths and under what conditions. So let's talk a little bit about neurodivergent conditions. We've got attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, dyslexia, dysgraphia. I can list them here. And there are more. Acquired neurodivergence, like a traumatic brain injury. So there are many different types of neurodivergencies. And as you can see from this chart that I particularly like, you can see some of the overlaps in strengths in those neurodivergencies. How do we tap into those strengths, though? It comes down to environment and systems. We're going to talk a little bit about that later. But neurodivergence is often misunderstood. This does not just represent what my computer looks like, it also represents what my brain looks like. I have ADHD. And no, I'm not going to make you all raise your hands like I did with our left-handed friend up front. But think about that. This is what my brain looks like. My brain has 47 tabs open at any given time, and one of them is playing music. Sometimes it's really hard for me to figure out which one. But what it comes down to, Dr. Edward Hallowell, a renowned expert on ADHD, and especially reframing ADHD, has put it like this: a person with ADHD has the power of a Ferrari engine, but with bicycle strength brakes. The mismatch of the power to braking capacity is what causes the problems. There's a massive engine, creativity, novelty seeking in people's brains, and especially with the ADHD as an example here. Brakes need a little bit of work. And that's where environment comes to play. And the power of finding what works for you starts with you. Whether or not you've been diagnosed with a neurodivergence, you have someone on your team, diagnosed or not, but with symptoms and with the traits thereof. It starts with us. And the spoiler alert for this whole thing today is what works for people with neurodivergencies, people with ADHD and autism spectrum disorder, dyslexia, dysgraphia, etc., also work for people who are neurotypical. It makes for a better workplace in the end. So we're going to talk about a few of those things coming up here. So supporting those challenges is the key to unlocking the strengths and even superpowers of people who are neurodivergent. And different things work for different people. So I personally have challenges with working memory. Working memory is like the Post-it note system in my brain. And the Post-it notes that my brain purchased were those cheap generic kind that lose the stickiness and just sort of flutter off to the side. So fortunately, I don't necessarily remember something as I walk in my house from one room to the next, as I walk down the hallway with people on my team and we're talking about what we're doing next. So what do? I write it down. You should see my desk. I've got to-do lists for days. I've got notes and real Post-it notes that I put up as well. I use timers and alarms. I have to literally set timers and alarms, and I live and die by my calendar. If it's on my calendar, I'll be there. If I have to remember something's in the oven, you better believe I'm setting a timer for it. I need visual reminders. If I'm doing laundry, that laundry basket needs to stay outside of my laundry room so that I know that there is a batch of laundry in there. I walk past it every time I go into my kitchen so that I do not forget it. And finally, automation and delegation. Teams are in place for a reason. Life partners, anything along those lines. Automating and delegating, whatever we can do to get the energy that we need to spend on things that are just really challenging that perhaps someone who has a neurotypical brain would go, why is that challenging for you? We can find tools and systems and processes to help the brain in everyday life, in a society that was created for neurotypical brains. Does this resonate with anyone in here? Does anybody use any of these? Like, raise your hand if you use any of these. And I'm going to guess not everyone in this room is neurodivergent. You might be, you might not be, but these are things that work and are helpful, and they don't work for everyone. And the key is thinking about that and then talking about it. Does anyone else have something that works for you that you don't see up on this list? Because I am always looking for like a cheat sheet and understanding what other people do so that I can try it also. Anybody else have systems that work for you when you need to remember something, for example?
I dictate everything to Siri on my commute. That's when I always think about stuff.
You dictate to Siri. Okay, so you're on your commute, you know you can't physically write it down, so you go, hey Siri, sorry if I, set anyone's off. And you make mention of something so that you don't forget it. That's fantastic. And then how do you feel after you have gotten that out?
I feel like a genius. It just took me years to figure out how to do that, really.
Has anyone else ever tried that? Dictating,
Upload to ChatGPT and it pumps back a to-do list of what I just said.
Right? Talking to ChatGPT and having it produce the to-do list. Love it. Right? So these are all ways that if you hadn't heard of something like that, maybe you're thinking now, maybe I want to try that. That's the power of us having this conversation here today. And also, if you're on teams, you can help others as well. Hey, let's try making a to-do list. There are a few different ways we could do that. You don't feel as comfortable writing it down? Maybe we can use voice. It's a great example. Thank you both for participating. And I just want to make note here, not only is having an inclusive work culture, right? Having teams that have different abilities, different skill sets, working together and playing off of each other, because everyone has different strengths and different weaknesses, regardless of your brain type. But diverse, inclusive teams fuel innovation, creativity, and performance. And not only is it the right thing to do, but for business purposes, organizations supporting inclusive cultures are twice as likely to meet or exceed financial targets, are 3 times as likely to be high performing, are 6 times as likely to be agile and innovative, and are 8 times as likely to achieve better business outcomes. Recognizing what a team needs to do their best work is not only the right thing to do for us as human beings, but it works well for business. This is a win-win scenario. So let's talk a little bit about unlocking that neurodiversity, the superpowers of neurodiversity at work. We're going to talk a little bit about creating an environment of psychological safety. Has anyone heard of psychological safety? All right, I'm getting some head nods and some hands raised around the room. Cindy has definitely heard about psychological safety because we've been in many classes together and she's heard me talk about it. Thanks for admitting to it, Cindy. So, psychological safety, we're going to talk a little bit about that. Supporting diverse, inclusive teams, and we just saw why that's important, also to business. And embracing universal design. Anyone ever heard of universal design? Okay. Excellent. So we're all going to learn a little something new today and maybe have something to add to the conversation. So psychological safety is the felt permission for candor on a team. It is not, I can say anything I want. It is not, I can come in and be unprofessional. It is creating an environment in which the team feels safe to speak up about risks and issues and innovative ideas. It creates an environment where the team feels safe, has a level of trust to actually speak up, which uncovers risks more quickly in an organization, and it helps to bring about innovative ideas. So this leads to, scientifically studied, better decision-making, higher team performance, innovation, creativity, learning, and resilience. It's the right thing to do. Additionally, diverse and inclusive teams are more likely to have financial returns above the industry average, more innovative, and are better at making decisions. Think about that. You are creating better teams by creating an environment in which they feel safe to speak up. And everyone needs to be a part of it, whether you are a member of that team, whether you are a leader of that team. Think about the best teams you've ever been on. How did that feel? Anyone want to share how that felt? Yes. Do we need, oh, we're going to say.
It felt trusting.
Trusting. Thank you. Anything else? Best team you've ever been on? We've got.
I had independence to fail.
Independence to fail. And failure is really important to be able to support. Intelligent failure. Failure is where we learn and then move forward in leaps and bounds, which is different, mind you, from mistakes and errors. Yes?
I felt that my opinion mattered.
Your opinion mattered, exactly. And it should. If you were on that team, you were on that team for a reason, and your opinion should matter. Thank you for adding that. Anything else? The best team you've ever been on? Oh, we got another one.
I think I felt safe.
Safe.
Like my team supported me.
Absolutely. They have your back, right? Absolutely. And I think we have one more in the back over here, too. Did you want to oh, yeah. Oh. I heard joyful and fun. Yeah, and I can, yeah. And also, just as a quick FYI, we are doing this hybrid, so we have people online who are watching and or who are watching afterwards. So if I'm repeating you, I just want to make sure that we get that also. So joyful and fun, absolutely. And fun, oh my goodness. We learn our best in fun environments. Look at kids and how they learn. Thank you all for sharing what that best feeling feels like. And that really is what your psychological safety creates an environment of, where everyone can do their best work. Now, just like the world was designed for the right-handed majority, the world was designed for the neurotypical majority, which can cause challenges. So, what's your name? I'm sorry. Alex. So, because you were my brave soul who raised his left hand when I asked who was left-handed, can I ask you, were you able to do your best work in kindergarten if you were handed a pair of right-handed scissors?
Am I supposed to remember kindergarten?
Last week, when someone handed you a pair of right-handed scissors.
I can imagine trying to shop for left-handed scissors and not finding any.
Not finding them, yeah.
Or finding ambidextrous scissors that were actually not ambidextrous, but secretly right-handed.
And that's a great point too, right? A system that wasn't exactly built for left-handedness was kind of calling itself maybe like, oh, you can use this and it should be good enough. We know it's not good enough. But if you had some left-handed scissors, that craft project, probably awesome. Those are probably some clean cut lines right there, right? Thank you, Alex. I appreciate you. But it causes challenges when we're not set up in an environment in which we can do our best work. It just makes everything harder. And this goes for people with neurodivergent conditions as well. So they're really high up, but let's talk about the lighting. Who likes fluorescent lighting anyway? Anybody like fluorescent lighting? Oh, you do? I don't get very many, but that's cool. We all have our own preferences. All right, sometimes. I can't stand fluorescent lighting. And fluorescent lighting is a really great example of something that is just so everyday in the office spaces that people occupy that is detrimental or can be detrimental to many people with neurodivergencies. They flicker, they hum, they're just like that tiny bit too bright. And those can actually cause physical pain in people with mental differences, right? With brain wirings that are different in some cases. Let's just say here too, everyone's brain is different, so it may be insufficient for some people and be sufficient for others. But universal design takes into account being able to create environments where we do our best work. Anyone ever used a standing desk? Yes. Who likes the standing desks? Who would prefer a standing desk any day of the week? Most days of the week, if you're not that tired. Okay. Right? So if you prefer that standing desk and you can do your work even better with that standing desk, that can also be converted into a sitting desk for those of us who maybe need to sit down to do our work, that's an example of universal design. We've just thought about something that will work for people in different circumstances. Now, it doesn't always have to be that. Who likes to work in silence? I'm seeing head nods, I'm seeing hands raises. Who does not like to work in silence? Right. Everyone is different. So for those people who like to work in silence, perhaps allowing a set of noise-canceling headphones. For those who like to work or do their best work with some music playing in the background, headphones work for that too. And these are not challenging or difficult, or we have to break down office walls to accommodate. So it's thinking about the little things that can help the team to do its best work, and for you all, and for me to do our best work. So, what do we do now? Did I mention I enjoy memes? So, embracing universal design example, this I think is an example we can all appreciate as another example of universal design and helping to include our neurodiverse people. Meeting culture. How can we make meetings better and more productive for all? All right, no one's speaking up, so I'm guessing you all love meetings and they're perfect. Now we're laughing and shaking our heads no. Oh, here's the mic right, yep.
Thank you. I think the first thing that comes to mind is when you are setting up a meeting, make sure you try to cater to all types of learning styles. So some people are visual, some people also need to hear. So try to cover all bases.
You're absolutely right. Everyone learns differently. Everyone receives information differently. Thank you so much for bringing that up. Anything else that anyone can think of? Let's start back here since you've got the mic already.
When you make decisions in a meeting, make sure every team member gets to chime in.
Right, and how would you do that? How would you go that extra mile to make sure you have every team member feel like they can have their voice heard?
Well, if we have a team member that's kind of timid and not having the abilities to speak up, we'll let them write it down.
Different ways of capturing that information. Absolutely, yes, thank you. We've got Alex and then someone in the back.
Well, I forgot what I was going to say. That was a really good answer. I was going to say only invite the people who are needed.
Be very, very thoughtful about who is needed in that room. Absolutely, and that way you're not wasting people's time. We've got back here and then Kathy.
Have an agenda
Yes,
beforehand.
agendas.
And be clear about what my role is in that
Agendas
meeting.
and roles, absolutely. And let me ask a quick question. And also I think we had, Kathy, you wanted to say something as well back here. So we'll grab that. And then I have a question for everyone.
Stay on time. Respect people's time. Do you have 5 more minutes? Can we stay on just 5 more minutes and that 5 more minutes turns into 20 minutes? And then you're late for the next meeting?
Right. Respect people's time. If you schedule that meeting for that amount of time, start on time, end on time. Or pro tip, end a few minutes early and then everybody loves you. Pro tip. So yes, and I put up a few up here. I think a lot of them were covered, right? Agendas in advance. Cameras off option if you're going hybrid. Some people feel really uncomfortable being on camera all the time, and so there could be that option. Contribute in different ways. We talked about that. Chat, follow-ups, vocal. Pausing to make space for all voices. Proactive accessibility. Note-taking rotation. How many of y'all are usually the person who's asked to take notes on meetings? Raise your hand if you're usually asked to take notes. A lot of the time, I usually see women raising their hand. Not all the time, and thank you for raising your hand on that. But put a rotation in there. It doesn't always have to be the same person. Yes?
But now you have AI to take the notes.
Even better. Exactly. Now you have AI that can take your notes and summarize it. Just be really careful to keep yourself on mute when you're yelling at your kids, because that shows up on those AI notes. I've seen some fun examples of that. But yes, exactly. And so that's that delegation and teamwork and delegation that we talked about. Delegation doesn't mean it needs to be to another person. It can be to another system or to AI in those cases. So who do these things work for? Everything that was set out here and everything that's on the board right now, who do those things work for? Say it louder. Everyone. Again, spoiler alert, we can do these things to make a better working environment for everyone involved. Everyone, thank you. And part of that is our communication and working styles. So think about your absolute best day of work. What did that feel like while you were in it? Just close your eyes for a second. Take yourself back to a day you felt super, I'm not even going to say the word because I want you to think about your verbs, but that you felt great walking out of work that day. What did that feel like to you? How did it feel when the day ended? I'm starting to see some people smile. I think remembering that. What created that environment for you? Does anyone want to share what that felt like and what created that environment on your absolute best day ever? Yes, let's grab the mic. Thank you.
I would say I think the best work day ever is you feel accomplished, like you've done your, you've ticked down the boxes on your to-do list. You've met with whoever you need to meet with, you accomplished your goal. At the end of the day, you left, you said, okay, I did all of these things, you're prepared for the next day, you pumped to, you're exhausted because you want to go home, but
Sure.
You're pumped for the next day because you're prepared because you've been able to complete, all of the things that you had scheduled for that day.
Accomplished, pumped, maybe exhausted, absolutely. I mean, a lot of work goes into that, but you're feeling really good about it at the end of the day. Thank you for describing that for us. So let's talk about how we can get there for ourselves and for our teams. Anybody ever heard of the golden rule? I'm seeing some head nods. Right? Treat others how you want to be treated. Has anyone ever heard of the platinum rule? I'm seeing a few head nods, but fewer of them. Our platinum rule is treat others how they want to be treated. And this is incredibly important when it comes to communication styles. In a diverse world, the platinum rule replaces the golden rule. We should treat others as they'd like to be treated, not as we'd like to be treated. I think of this from a communication perspective. We default to our communication styles when it comes to communicating with other people. Think about how you communicate with your team members, how you communicate if you have kids, if you communicate with a partner in life, with friends. Do you usually think much about how you are communicating with those folks? You think about it? You're already on to the next step then. I think many people don't think about it if they don't have to. And it comes into play when there starts to be an issue or a breakdown in that communication. Now, treating others how they want to be treated and communicating in the styles in which people best understand is not easy because we all have our default communication styles that we will go back into, especially when we are stressed or when there are pressing deadlines. And that's when it's most important to think about this. So that will move us into this I work best when exercise. Each one of you should have picked up one of the little packets at the back while you're walking in. Does anybody not have that packet? It looks like this, except yours are in black and white, which is totally fine. They don't need to be in color, so we've got this here. So what I'd like to take a few minutes to do is if you open up to the third page of this, we've got some examples. And I want everyone to think about how each person, how you each individually work best. Because typically, we don't talk much about this at work. Who's ever had a conversation with their team, their leader, their manager, or someone who reports to you, anyone at work, about, hey, I want to let you in on how I work best, or has a leader ever had this conversation? Okay, we have a few. How do you feel like the communication is if you actually have that conversation outright? I'm getting some thumbs up down here. Okay. We have a hand raised over here. Yeah?
I think it depends.
Oh, one sec.
It depends on the manager and how they implement that information.
Okay.
You can be the manager that asks, and you can be the manager that actually implements what you've learned about your people, and that is a big difference to me.
Huge difference. I could not agree more. It's one thing to say it or to ask people for that information. It's another thing to do something with it. And frankly, it feels even worse to be asked for that information and to not have it be respected. Don't even ask me for it then. Don't waste my time. Oh, one sec.
I can't co-sign what she said enough, because in my company, we had to fill out a user guide of me where you explain, this is how I work best, this is my communication style, and that. And then some managers, they have that, and they still don't follow that. And so at the end of the day, you are very frustrated. So can't emphasize that enough. She made a great point.
Yes. And I think it's an incredibly important point as well. Thank you for seconding that point. We can do this, and it's a complete waste of time if we don't think about what that means for our team members and others. And so let's make that commitment to not do that today, to make sure that we think about this in a productive way. And I'm going to ask all of you to think about what one thing you're going to take away from this and implement in the next 24 to 48 hours that you think is valuable for you. So something to think about as we're going through this exercise. So on that first page, you have a bunch of examples of I work best when. Right? Recognition and motivation. Not everyone likes to be recognized in the same way. Some people do not like to be recognized on a huge stage, and some people love it. It's all about understanding how the other person wants to be treated. So those are some examples to think about, and it is a non-exhaustive list. So there are plenty of other things here, but if you flip to that next page, you have a page for you to start filling out. So we're going to take a few minutes to think about when I work best, or I work best when. What are the conditions under which you individually work best? Because before it's fair to ask anyone else, we want to think about it for ourselves first. So why don't we take a few minutes to just go through. It could just be your own notes, jot it down, doesn't need to be pretty, but just so that you remember or can start that thought process for yourself. And then we'll go on to the next part, asking ourselves what we're challenged by after we understand how we work best. So we're just going to take a couple of minutes here to go ahead and do that. I thought about including music for this part of the session, but knew that some people would like it and some people wouldn't. So for those of you who enjoy music, please feel free to set play in your heads on your favorite song while you are enjoying this exercise.
You were going to sing.
No. All right, feel free to keep writing, and or you can also bring this home and feel free to continue to flesh that out, especially for yourself. Would anyone like to share what they wrote down? And I personally love the sharing part of this because there's usually something someone else says that resonates with me that I just didn't think of in the first place. So I love how it kickstarts people's creativity and thought process as well. Alex, did you want to share? Get the mic down.
So for my thing with communication, I said I work best when I'm not shamed for stating the obvious, because it's not always obvious to me.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. And not only am I happy that you shared that because it could give other people ideas of how they work best, it also helps others to understand how maybe another member of their team is working best, or something that we can do or say to help be more supportive, as opposed to shaming someone for something that we're going to put that in quotes because it's not necessarily obvious for everyone, right? That obvious thing. Thank you for sharing that. Who else? What else? Yes.
I wanted to add to the communication piece. So for mine, I said I prefer direct feedback in a respectful tone. And part of it is that I grew up in Nigeria. Mm-hmm. We're very big on hierarchy, levels, and stuff like that. America, I find them super direct and sometimes rude. So yeah, this is how I prefer to get feedback, but haven't always figured out the right way to translate that. And then also being a woman sometimes in the workplace, if you're too direct, you're looked upon as, I don't know, a biatch.
Right, it's viewed very differently
yes.
from men in some instances, yes.
Correct, so, yeah.
Yes, thank you for that. And that's a really important point too, cultural differences in how feedback is received or how we even communicate with one another. Right? And I think we take for granted how we individually grow up, the environments in which we're in, and then assume that that's going to be okay for someone else. Not maliciously assume, but just that's sort of how our brains function. And so to step outside of that and acknowledge that different cultures have different expectations and different ways of communication is really important. Thank you for sharing that with us. Yeah, who else? Who's next? Oh, wait, yes. Did you get your sheet?
Yes, I have my sheet.
Oh, good.
See my head.
Oh, yeah, of course.
I'm a big guy, and sometimes I have a tendency to express my emotion with passion. Mm-hmm. Sometimes that passion takes as intimidation.
Mm-hmm. And so how would you share with a member of your team about that about you so that it's taken in the way that you want it to be taken, as opposed to someone making an assumption?
I'm not angry or upset. I'm just passionate about this topic. I'm just sharing how I really feel.
Right. And by just saying those words can sometimes diffuse a situation or have a more tense situation not even come to pass in the first place, because now I understand how your passion might come across, and I can say, oh, he's being really passionate about this. He really feels strongly. Okay, we should have this conversation. Thank you for sharing that. Who else? What else? Yes, we have over here.
For communication, I like to understand the why behind the ask when someone requests something from me, because if I know why they want it, I can sometimes deliver more than what they've asked, or I can do a better job of anticipating what they may need in addition to it, or just do a better job of sharing with them with a little bit more context. And when I'm asking you, can you tell me why you're asking me? It's not that I don't want to do it. It's not that I disagree with you. I want to understand why. I'm not challenging you. I want to get the context so I can deliver what you need.
And do you think if you communicated that to your manager, let's say, that conversations might go a little bit differently than if you didn't communicate that to your manager?
It has.
It has. Yes. Okay, so you've used this and you've actually explicitly stated this.
Yeah, well, it was a miscommunication, and then it was cleared up later.
Gotcha. And that's what happens a lot. Thank you for sharing that. That's what happens a lot. That these things come into play, and then we finally tell someone only after that miscommunication has occurred, or that assumption has occurred by the other person, and then now we're trying to clear it up. Imagine if we were a little bit more proactive about it to avoid some of those situations. But you're absolutely right in, hey, now that situation has occurred, let's talk about that. Let's talk about how this looks like passion, or how if you can explain to me a little bit more about this and I can see the forest through the trees, that we're going to have a different outcome or result. So that is really important. Thank you so much. And actually that reminds me too of a conversation that I've had to have with people that I report to, people who reported to me, team members, leadership. I do my best thinking out loud. I have to verbalize something in order to process it. And in doing that, I realized that as I kind of climbed the corporate ladder and got into positions of leadership, that instead of people taking that from me as, oh, this is an idea Jen has and she's talking through it, instead, I saw people go run off and doing things. And I'm going, no. This is an initial starting point. This is meant to spur conversation so that we can talk through it and come up with the best next steps, not just go do what Jen said. That's the opposite of what I want to happen. And I realized really quickly that I needed to have the conversations and share with people about how I communicate best, how I process things best, so that there wouldn't be a misunderstanding where people would go and do something and say, but Jen said to do this. Jen wanted to have a conversation about this. Jen needed to process this. So that was one of the ways that I had communicated with my team about that. And again, after a miscommunication, after I was seeing that this was happening and going, oh, they can't read my mind. So let me share a little bit about how my brain processes, and I want you to share how your brain processes so that we can better understand and move forward and be really productive with that. Anything else anyone wants to share about working best? Oh yes, if we could get the mic. I'm sorry, I'm making y'all get your steps in today. I love interaction, so thank you all for joining in the conversation.
I like what you've said about having that conversation, and I've tried to be better at doing that when it comes to stress management. We have 20 people on our team, and some of them have come forward and said, hey, I'm neurodivergent, this is what I work best with, etc. But I don't think what we talk about enough is stress management, and so we've all had that project that pushes us to the breaking point, and we're working late and we're exhausted, and I have been trying to be better about understanding that sometimes I need people to just ask me as a neurotypical, what can I do to help you? and that same question can be asked of those that are neurodivergent so that they can tell you exactly how they can handle or manage that stress and what you can do to step in to help them with that. So if you have any tools that can build my toolbox for that, I would gladly accept them, because I think that's really important, is how I manage stress is not how my peers are going to manage it.
Absolutely,
as
and
well.
we all manage stress differently. We all have different coping mechanisms by which to manage that stress. So thank you for sharing that with everyone, because that is a really important point around how each person manages that stress, and reaching out and asking, how can I help, is helpful. Recognizing also that someone is getting to that point or at that point is also really helpful. And that's actually where communicating some of these things can help earlier on. I had to communicate with a business partner of mine that being very stressed and overwhelmed leads to freezing for me. So if you stop hearing from me, if I stop communicating with you, it's not because of you necessarily, it may be because of everything that is going on in my world, and I just froze. And what I need from you in that moment is to reach out, reassure me, ask if I need help prioritizing. So instead of it just being a, how can I help, which is a great first step, having that conversation in advance can also open the doors to what is it that you might need in that moment when you're not already really stressed and it's harder to process. One of my favorite lines, and hopefully I can say this, one of my favorite lines from a song is actually from one of the songs in Frozen. People make bad choices when they're mad or scared or stressed, but throw a little love their way and you'll bring out their best. Now, yes, those cute little trolls were singing it, but it has real power and research behind that. It's true, we make bad choices when we're mad or scared or stressed, so it's creating an environment in which we can help others or ourselves manage that stress in some way, shape, or form, and have the conversation in advance so that you're not in that state when having this conversation. Because who's ever been super stressed and someone's like, how can I help you? And you're like, I have no idea. I know I've had that conversation. Because in that moment, I really have no idea. But if we were to have that conversation in advance, I have a little bit better of an idea of how I actually can be helped. I can say, usually when I'm in that place, I need someone to help me prioritize. I need somebody to body double with me sometimes when I'm feeling very unfocused and it's really hard for me to get started on a task. Just sitting in the same room with someone can help me. But if you ask me while I'm in the middle of that very stressful moment, I've forgotten. I'll go have to check one of my Post-it notes that's on my desk somewhere and be like, how am I supposed to de-stress again? But yeah, so I think that that's really important to have some of these conversations in advance and say, what does that look like for you? How can I recognize it? And what might you need from me in that moment? I need deadlines. Oh, we'll get the mic for you, Cindy.
I work with a lot of neurodivergent children. And I think that you brought up a very interesting point. Some people, when they're very stressed, will explode and they get loud. And they're the ones that get the attention. But a lot of the children that I work with implode. They get very quiet. And so I try to keep my eye out for those children because they're the ones that are in the moment and they don't have the communication skills. And so as the adults, I have to have those communication skills and create a safe space. And so understanding what stress looks like for members on your team before it happens can help. So I like that part that you brought up there with that piece, because it can look both ways, right?
Absolutely. Yes, thank you both for sharing. This is what makes this conversation better, is when we get the sharing of ideas, the sharing of what's worked, the sharing of what hasn't worked, right? So is there anything else anybody would like to share before we move on to the next part? Okay, the next page is blind spots and some reflections. We all have blind spots. what we're challenged by, maybe what we don't see, that others might. And it's tough to think about that, but the more you think about it, the more you know it about yourself, the better you can communicate as well. And by the way, me sharing that I know that I go into more of that quiet place when I get really stressed out and I kind of stop communicating with people, and that's a sign that I have, is something I had to spend years figuring out. So this is not necessarily something that you just go, oh yeah, I know exactly what all that stuff is. But if you know it, it's really, really helpful, and it's helpful in communicating it with others who love and care about you, and who can be part of that support system in advance, proactively. So some of the reflective prompts are also about your work preferences, how you work best, etc. We don't have to fill those out right now. Those are for you to go and take away and think about. And what I would also encourage everyone to do is think about someone on your team that it would make sense to do this exercise with, in whatever way, shape, or form that looks like. You might want to use the little grid that I supplied. You might just want to have a conversation. Whatever works best, but to have that exercise with someone on your team, someone you work with, who you want to learn a little bit more about, so that you can have an even better working relationship with. I've had to have these conversations with my husband. They work in real life relationships too, not just in the workplace, by the way. So this is all about creating spaces where everyone can thrive. And congratulations, you're here. Anyone familiar with Yoga with Adrienne Mischler? Okay, she kept me sane during the pandemic. Yes, she puts out tons of videos of really accessible yoga. It's a beautiful thing. If you like yoga or you've ever been interested, highly recommend you check her out on YouTube. I'm not getting paid a dime by her. I just really enjoy her stuff. Adrienne Mischler, it's called Yoga with Adrienne. But one of the things I love about it is at the beginning of a lot of her videos, she'll say, congratulations. You made it to your mat. That's the hardest part. You're here. Congratulations. So think about what thriving looks like for you. Think about what thriving looks like for your team. Because it starts with me. And we can bring together, we can go from symptoms to strengths and even superpowers across the team by embracing those inclusive practices, making people feel psychologically safe to speak up, by reframing mindsets, thinking about strengths as opposed to just challenges. Yes, we have to acknowledge the challenges. Let's be real about that. There are lots of day-to-day challenges for people with neurodivergence. But there are also amazing strengths if we can help to create environments, and that's both for ourselves and the teams around us, to support our best work. We can reduce stigma and create great working environments. So, I want you all to think about this and turn your paper over to the back where it's blank. What's one thing you'll apply or do differently in the next 24 hours based on what we just talked about? Think about it. Write it down. This is your commitment to yourself. If you'd like to share with everyone else, you are more than welcome to. We'll pass around the mic for whoever wants to do that, but this is for you. Training is great, and I say 24 to 48 because I know it's Saturday and work again is on Monday, so it's for you though. And you can walk in here and enjoy this session. I hope you've enjoyed the session. But if we don't put it to work and put a commitment in there, it's likely you won't remember it or try. Excellent. We're doing great. Thank you. I thought you were giving me a virtual high five. Because I'm there with you. I'm there with you. We pass the mic around? Yeah.
I am going to borrow this young lady's user guide of me. When she said that didn't hit my head, it hit my heart. So I'm going to take that away.
Thank you, Kathy. Virtual high five. High five across the room. Anyone else? Oh, we got one down here, yeah.
Thanks. For me, I think this, I work best when with the domains and stuff, that activity. I'm dyslexic, and I think it would probably help my team if I broke some of this down. And this is a nice format that I can kind of be, and they know that I'm doing PD. So I can be like, oh, here's a takeaway.
Yes.
So it's a twofer, really. Yeah.
I love that. I love that you're sharing with your team, because then it brings it even further. And thank you for sharing about your dyslexia. I appreciate it. So whether or not you share or disclose a condition, the I work best when structure can work for everyone. You can choose to disclose, you can choose not to disclose. I guarantee you there are people on your teams that you have no idea if they have a neurodivergence or not. Some of them may and be very proud of it, very out and open about it, and some may not. And that's okay, because this works regardless of disclosure. Yes.
Interestingly and very timely, our employees engagement survey came back, and communication was a key area that kept coming up and coming up. So I did not write on my paper. I'm going to be sharing this with our HR director, because we have a training in November for communication, and I think this tool is very powerful. So
oh, that's fantastic. I'm so, and this makes my heart so happy, because this just needs to, the more we can create working environments where everyone can thrive, the better off we all are. So thank you for bringing it back in that way. And I'm more than happy to talk to you as well about it too, if we can connect afterwards. Yeah. Anyone else would like to share? Yes.
I think for me, I actually work on a team with two people who are neurodivergent, and I am neurotypical. And I think that one of the reasons why I wanted to come to this particular session was because I wanted to hear, because I think that as neurotypical, we assume that everybody thinks like us, everybody responds the same way. And sometimes I can tell that the response wasn't necessarily the typical response, but I'm not really sure what I did that was wrong, right? Like, I know I said something that was wrong, or responded in a way that did not, I guess, give me the, oh yeah, great, whatever response that I thought I would receive, but I'm not really sure what I said or what I didn't say, or maybe it was how I said it. But I think that one of the things that I'm going to focus on when I leave here is really making sure, and I'm going to say it this way because I don't know how to say it, just not being so flippant in your response, because I think sometimes we're moving so fast, it's just a flippant response, like, yeah, of course, whatever, and you just go on. But for me, it was, not a big deal, but for somebody else or someone who's neurodivergent, it is a big deal.
Yes, that's very true. And thank you so much for showing up with curiosity to understand better. And that's fantastic. Thank you for being so thoughtful about that for your team and for the people you interact with. That's fantastic, because everyone gives and receives differently. Yeah. Well, I can't tell you how much I appreciate having you all. This is great. I love a group that engages and is interested, and so I thank you from the bottom of my heart. This is my personal feedback form. Feedback is a gift, and you can make it rain for me. I would really appreciate any and all of your feedback. So this is that one. So if y'all want to fill out very quick, it's super fast. But there is also another one for the for PMI as well, that I think we're going to talk about too, right? Oh, and this is my LinkedIn if anyone wants to connect as well. So lots of QR codes. Make it easy, delegate, automate.